Another week of securing your online presence and profile. Last week we talked about Signal, an end-to-end encrypted private messaging app, and why you should switch to it. If you haven't watched that, I recommend going back and checking it out. This week we're going to talk about operating systems. Now think of an operating system like the engine in your car. Okay, the car is your device, your computer or your phone that you're running, right? And operating system is the engine. You have a lot of different engines. You have like Mac OS, you have Windows, you have Android, you have Apple OS. Okay, these are all the engines that are driving our devices. And we're going to talk about one of the most reliable, secure, and private engines you can get to run your machines, and that's Linux. Now, a lot of people might hear Linux and you might have heard of it before and think it's only for programmers, hackers, software developers, you know, people who know a lot about tech. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not the case. Now, you have a lot of different flavors of Linux or distributions as they're called. You have like your chocolate, your vanilla, your cookies and cream. Okay, you have like your Ubuntu, your Linux Mint, your Arch Linux. Okay, we won't go into the cult that is Arch Linux. We're going to focus on beginner steps, okay? And that's Linux Mint. Now, Linux was originally founded by Linus Torvald in 1991, and he was inspired by the Unix projects. Now, Unix was operating system that was proprietary and very expensive to get your hands on. And Linus thought this wasn't fair. The world should have free, open source access to the operating system. So he built from the ground up the Linux system, okay? And he released it under the GNU General Public License, okay? So that means anyone can see the code, anyone can modify it and change it to how they like and make their own flavor of ice cream. There's a lot of devices running Linux, a lot of supercomputers, a lot of servers, a lot of Internet of Thing devices. So think of all your smart appliances like your smart fridge or your smart lights. Okay, a lot of these are running lightweight versions of Linux. Super awesome. Let's jump into a live demo of Linux Mint so I can show you how easy it is to switch to it. And also a benefit, it's free. You know, a lot of people you have to go and pay to activate Windows. Or if you want to run Mac OS, you have to buy an Apple device, right? Well, with Linux, you can just throw it on to pretty much any computer. It works straight out of the box. Super awesome, super easy to learn. It's not intimidating, okay? Don't get scared. You got this. So let's go ahead and jump into Linux Mint. All right, we're over here in our Linux Mint. This is our home desktop. This is running under the Cinnamon desktop environment, okay? As we can see, it looks pretty simple, right? This doesn't look super complicated. Down here in the bottom right, or bottom left, I should say, we have our start menu, okay? And we can see we have a whole bunch of stuff that comes pre-installed on Linux Mint. Also, right beside that, we have our file system. And we can go ahead and open that up, and we can see this looks pretty familiar if you've ever even ran like a Windows machine before, right? We can just go in this downloads folder, and we can just right-click, create a new folder, and say hi, you know, and boom, we have our folder. We can drag and drop things around. Super easy to use. All right, so that's the File Explorer. By default, we have Firefox as the browser. It doesn't come with Chrome, Edge, or Safari like other operating systems. It comes pre-installed with Firefox. Now, if you want, I wouldn't recommend, but if you want, you can download other browsers pretty much as easy as you can on any other machine. But I made a lot of videos about Firefox and how to set it up securely, and you should check those out. Now, next to that, we also have our terminal, right? And we can go ahead and open this up. And this is what most people think of when they see Linux. All right, the terminal, if you do end up running a Linux machine, you will have to learn some terminal stuff eventually. Now, you can get away with not ever using this almost, but we won't really go into the terminal too much. I can make later videos on that if people are interested, and we can cover kind of some simple stuff in there. But you don't really have to use it a whole lot if you're just kind of using your computer for general browsing and stuff. Now down here on the right side, we can see our update manager. Now keeping your applications and your system updated is the best way you can stay secure as well as safe from hackers, malware, viruses, and all other kinds of bad things, alright? Now Linux is awesome because you can just go ahead and go in here and click install updates, and it will install these updates in the background while you can keep working. I know a lot of people have ran into the issue where their computer, especially Windows, starts updating and it'll shut down on you, right? A lot of times unexpectedly. Now they've gotten a lot better about this, but still, you can just go ahead and go in here and we can see we're installing packages. This is running through the terminal, but again, super easy to not run that. There's ways you can do it through the terminal, and we're just going to go ahead and minimize this and let that work in the background. We can go over here, and a lot of big things like people don't want to switch away from Windows because of the Office suite, right? Well, a lot of that stuff is already implemented with open source applications inside of Linux. Like over here, we can see our LibreOffice, okay? And this is pretty similar to Excel for Microsoft, right? A lot of the same features. They got a lot of tips. You know, you can do 5 plus 5, right? You can fill out all your stuff. You also have Writer, you know, it's this comparable to Word, okay? A lot of stuff. You can change the fonts, the styles. Now, it might take a little bit to switch over from like Office applications to this. There's a few learning curves, but again, it's super awesome. Open source, you'll never have to pay for it. Definitely worth switching over from Windows, okay? Now, a lot of people are like, well, how do I get applications? Well, that's pretty easy. You just can type in software manager, okay? This is your main source for getting applications on Linux. So we can see we're over here in the software manager store, and we have a lot of applications that are available to us. A lot of these will be different. You can't get a lot of Windows stuff, although the more and more people use Linux, the more that developers will make Linux versions of those applications, okay? And if your favorite application isn't on Linux, there's probably an open source application that you can run that's almost as good, if not better, than, you know, the other versions you're running. So that's the software manager. And we can pull back up our update manager and we can see, boom, we're done updating, just like that. Okay. Again, always check this bar, try and keep your system and applications updated constantly. It's not that hard to run it. We also have a lot of different applications, accessories. You have your calculator, image viewers, notes, a lot of drawing stuff, document scanners, Thunderbird email. Again, I'd recommend Proton email, but these are just the ones that come pre-installed. You got your sound and video, as well as your administration, right? Everything in Linux Mint, you can, if you're not sure what, just type in the search bar, you know. Say we want to do drivers. Boom, right here we have our driver manager. So we can go ahead and go into here and make sure our system drivers are updated. And as we can see, our drivers are up current. We don't need any updates. So we can go ahead and close out of that. We can also go system monitor. This is like your task bar or your task manager. We can see our resources, our usage, how much the system is running, okay? We can also go, let's check out some more administration. Time shift, we use this to basically, you can make a snapshot of your system, and if you do something to mess it up, you can roll back to before you messed up your system with a time shift. Uh, System reports, logs and stuff, preferences. Let's just go ahead and change some stuff. Let's go ahead and go into themes. And I like dark themes, so we can go ahead and go apply that. Say we want to change to purple. Now we have a purple theme as well. You can go, with a lot of different stuff. Kind of free to customize. You can also download different desktop environments. So this one we're running is a Cinnamon one, but if you don't like that, you can change it as well. We can also set up a firewall. Now out the gate, this doesn't come pre-configured, so we'll have to kind of set this up, but we can just go ahead and turn it on. The basic, most people will be pretty safe with incoming deny and outgoing allow firewall rules. So boom, our firewall's set up. You can do a lot of the things like the tiling on Windows, that so many people love. Boom, that comes out the gate. Let's also go into preferences and desktop. You can change if we want, different things to show up, like our trash, our network, all these different folders on our home screen. Gestures are super useful if you're using a touchscreen device. If you want to change your mouse and keyboard, you can also do that as well. Nightlight, your panel, think of that like your taskbar. Now, this is super dope because you can add new panels. Say you want one up here, you can add a panel up there. And as you can see, now we have a panel up there. Say you want to customize your background. Well, it's awesome because it comes with a lot of dope ones already installed. Like this one's one of my personal favorites. We can put that on. We can also choose a lot of different wallpapers, right? Say we want this one. You can add your own custom ones as well. They have a lot of high resolution custom backgrounds. This one's pretty cool. We can stick with that. Down over here, we can see our network settings, our sound as well. All of this is super, super easy to use if you ever used a Windows device before. This is pretty much Linux Mint. Again, take back control of your operating system, okay? Windows, Apple, they all phone home with so much telemetry, so much data on what you're doing. Okay, there's so many unneeded things running constantly all the time. Linux runs awesome. Like the speeds are crazy. Like throw this on an old laptop and you will be blown away by how much faster it performs than with an old like Windows installation, okay? And most of that's just generally because it's not running all these I mean, there's a lot of background processes, but the amount is so much lower than on Apple or Windows, okay? And also, by default, it is way more secure. Linux does not allow things to access root files of the system, okay? You have to basically escalate your privileges every time you want to do that with your password. And it's also way more secure because most of the malware and viruses that are targeting things are targeting them because there's way more users on those devices. Like Windows holds the majority market share of computer devices, right? It's like 70%. It fluctuates up and down, it's around there. and then Mac OS is like another 20-ish%. And people love to think that like Apple systems cannot be hacked. Well, yes, they can. I hate to break it to you, but if it connects to the internet, it can be hacked. Linux can also be hacked as well. But you are throwing yourself into a lower market share of devices, right? And more secure devices generally as well. The amount of people running these devices is way lower. Okay, a lot of top executives, people high up in organizations and people who want to be secure are running Apple now. So hackers, malware designers, they're all targeting these systems a lot more than they ever have been before. So Apple is not as secure as people love to think it is. All right. Linux by default, it's got less market share. So you're going to have a lot less people developing exploits and hacks for this system, as well as it generally just is more secure than others. Again, I could talk on and on and on about Linux and why it's so awesome. As we can see, it's super easy to set up, super easy to run, even for beginners. Don't be intimidated. You can run Linux, okay? Now, next week we'll go into how to install Linux from the ground up, verifying the files and everything. Stay tuned for that video, and thanks for watching.